No.
Please. It's my mom's Remembrance Day. I just want to forget about it.
Huh?
Who's up?
I'll do it.
Cannot go for more than 90 seconds. Am I clear?
What happens after 90 seconds?
Don't want to stay.
Hello everyone, welcome to this bonus episode of the Evolution of Horror. As many of you may well be aware, one of the best horror films of the year, in fact my favourite horror film of the year so far, Talk to Me, is finally out in UK cinemas. Go and give it a watch if you haven't seen it already. When the film premiered a couple of months ago at Sundance, London, I had the privilege of sitting down and interviewing the directors of Talk to Me, the directing brother duo Danny and Michael Philippou. They're better known as the YouTube sensations Raka Raka. They have been hugely successful YouTubers for years, a decade now, but this is their first foray into a studio feature film, and holy shit, it does not disappoint. So I sat down and had a little chat with the guys about making the film, about transitioning from the world of YouTube to the world of feature A24 movies. Just so you know, this interview is a little bit chaotic. These two are big balls of energy, and they talk over each other a lot, they mock each other a lot, so it's not always clear as to who is talking and when, and occasionally one of them will interrupt or interject, so it's a little bit chaotic. You've just got to go with the chaotic energy and enjoy the chat. So here is my discussion of Talk to Me, spoiler free I should point out, with directors Danny and Michael Philippou.
Talk to me.
Danny and Michael Philippou, hello and welcome. This is so exciting. We're sat right now, it's the morning after the London premiere at Sundance, London. How was that screening for you? How was that experience last night?
It's so funny. It's always really, really nerve-wracking watching with an audience for some reason. I always get really nervous. Had to get a little bit drunk beforehand. And I just get so weird about watching with an audience. But I did sit down for the whole thing and watch through. And then it's always fun hearing reactions. Picture House, is that the...
Yes, yeah.
The sound system is amazing.
Yeah.
I think the sound system's better there than where we mixed the film. Because I was like, I was like, I wanted to remix the film after that. I'm like, drag that bass out a little bit. It really was so good. Those back speakers were phenomenal. And there's some bassy bits, and that cinema keeps up. Like, it's crazy. It's so good.
Well, do you know what? The sound design in this film is so powerful. That's something that I spoke about with friends as soon as we came out. You know, we were like, oh my God, that kind of scrunchy, crunchy sound design. It must have, how much kind of work and thought went into the soundscape of this film?
Well, it's our sound designer, Emma. Oh, what's her last name? Shame on you. Damn. Emma. And it starts with a B. Bordingham. I think you said that wrong. You said Bordegon. Yeah. Yeah, she was amazing, and it was like, I care so much about sound. Like, ever since we were little kids, we'd always use sound and music to cover up our shitty filming. Like nothing's happening, so let's make it sound like something's happening with sound and that. Like having a proper sound designer and coming up with the sound of the film and showing how much you can articulate things not visually but through just audio, and you can hit things that you just can't visually as well. It's it was amazing working with talented. But Michael was really too hands on to the point where he's like, no, that's 1 dB too loud, and they're like, you know when people they in the mixing rooms they mix it. I can hear when they're manually dropping things out. I'm like, can you do the audio? Because I can hear that drop off 2 dB. But it always felt like Chris was she would deliver a pass, and we'd give it a whole bunch of notes. She'd disappear for a month and come back, and it's like, whoa, and it just kept strengthening, and then sounds it was so he was very hands on. It was a good process.
I love it. Let me just rewind then and go back to the beginning for a moment. Where did the seed of this idea? Where did it begin for you guys? Talk to me in this story.
There's two big inspirational points. There's one, these neighbors that we watched grow up. From young to young adults, and then as one of the boys were growing up, he was experimenting with drugs, and he was having a really negative reaction to what he'd taken, and he was on the floor and he was convulsing, and all the friends that he was with were filming him and laughing at him. And like I remember seeing that footage and it really bothering me and stuck with me. And then there was also a short film that I got given by an awesome producer named Daley Pearson. He'd written it, and it was about kids having fun with these possessions. And like that sort of fell into that. And then
there's one other thing, the hand thing.
Well, there's a million things that motivated different. Yeah, okay. Well, yeah, there was this car accident that I was in when I was 16. And I like split my face open here. I've got a scar right above my eye, and like I was bleeding profusely. And they thought I might have broken my spine and all this sort of stuff. And I was in hospital, and I physically couldn't stop shaking. And like they'd put the heaters on, they'd give me extra blankets, all the doctors, but like nothing could stop me from shaking. And my sister came into the room. She sat next to me. She held my hand, and the shaking just stopped. And like I wasn't shaking because I was cold. I was shaking because I was in shock. And the touch of someone that I loved like brought me out of it. So like that always stuck with me as well, like how powerful human touch is and like a genuine connection between people. It's such and already like through the film, there was such a motif, hands were such a motif. And it was constantly throughout the film, and we found that horror item in like the second or third draft based on that. And yeah, that became everything for the film.
Yeah, physical representation of the themes.
Well, there's such a human heart to this film as well. I think that's, for me, what makes the horror work so well, is that you care about these characters. There is this kind of humanity between them. How was that for you in the writing process, kind of balancing that, I suppose, giving us human characters and human relationships in amidst all of this crazy supernatural horror?
Yeah, that's the thing, because working as a drama...
You didn't write it. We wanted to work as both a horror film and a drama film, and like having,
and it was all in the editing process, not the writing. So.
Michael's drafts, every time I'd write a draft, I said it to him, his notes were like, boring, bored, what is this, boring? And then that's usually the creative notes Michael gives me. So we love jabbing at each other while we're doing interviews.
I think it's just you jabbing at me, but yeah.
I love it. How is it when you guys work together as a team generally on the film? What's it like on set when you are directing together? You know, do you sort of divvy up jobs? Do you do everything as a kind of united front?
It's a pretty united vision, actually, between the two of us. And I'd be the main direction voice on set, and Michael would like feedback on the side and like tell me notes to relay to people if he had like specific notes. And then, yeah, a lot of arguing over text. Not in front of the crew.
Yeah, Danny would show me text, like, stop contradicting me.
Yeah,
but we did hear early, and I'd read it and pretend I couldn't read it. I'm like, do you think... But I heard there's other directors that like really yell at each other on set. So maybe we'll
do that next time.
Energy the next time.
What's that transition like? Obviously, you guys for years have been hugely successful YouTubers, and you've made videos together for years. But what's it like suddenly stepping onto a proper studio film set? You've got different departments working for you, you know, a whole crew. What was that transition like into making your first feature?
It's funny. It's like... You have to try and not get overwhelmed because, you know, there's millions of dollars. There's a lot of people there to produce a vision that Danny wrote in his bedroom. And it's like, you know, we kind of like faked it till we got there or something. I don't know. But, you know, we had worked on films before YouTube, so we knew how that worked. And we even did like some commercials in Norway, and like we
Norwegian commercials.
And like so we'd worked with crews before and stuff, so we knew kind of what we were getting into.
But at night, like I felt pretty confident during the day, but at night when you lay down, I would start questioning. I'm like, oh my god, like it was so terrifying. I remember like the day before we started shooting, I'm like, God, we don't know what we're doing. Why they entrust us with all this money? It was like terrifying. But then when you get there, like you just have to just.
And having like a cool crew of people like that just help bring the vision to life. It's like, and Samantha Jennings from Causeway, man, what an anchor. Like she was amazing.
She's our producer.
In every aspect. Yeah, our producer. Yeah. On set every day, amazing script notes, such an understanding on film language. You know, we could lean on her all the time.
And like also like to rein us in and to like calm us down and be like, hey, we did it, you know.
And what made you want to do horror for your first feature? Like, have you guys always been into horror? Like, where did you first fall in love with horror?
I began with the Goosebump books, R.L. Stine, yeah. Amazing. The biggest fan of those as a kid. And I'm like, one person made all this stuff. So I was so obsessed with being R.L. Stine and so obsessed with Goosebumps. And then just being obsessed with horror because our mum would never let us watch specific horror. She'd be like, you can't watch anything past PG medium level violence. It's the Australian Classification Board. And so like that, having that guard, that gate up, like it always made us want to jump over it. And our dad would let us watch whatever. And so like that was always felt like really fun and like we were like being rebels and like watching stuff we weren't meant to.
Yeah, it's always something like with the video store. I feel bad for kids these days. I can't, experience a video store. Right. But you go to the section, like the horror section, you see these crazy covers, and you're like, what is happening in that movie?
Yeah.
So we get our grandfather who didn't speak English to get them for us.
He didn't understand that we weren't allowed to watch it.
Then he'd get yelled at.
He'd get yelled at, yeah.
Poor guy.
Thank you, Bapu.
Do you remember your first like movie theatre experience watching a horror film?
Yeah.
Freddy vs. Jason.
Freddy, amazing.
Yeah,
wow,
we had our dad's friend from work, Jenny, would take us to movies we weren't allowed to watch. Oh, like we had to have a guardian. So Freddy vs. Jason, and then the next one was Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the remake.
I remember the opening, we went to Freddy vs. Jason, and there's like, this girl, and she's like nude in the lake, and we're like, like 10 years old or whatever it was.
Yeah.
But Texas Chainsaw Massacre was the first one that I walked out of, because it was too overwhelming for me. I had to walk out. And then there was a guy, I was waiting in the the hallway outside the cinema because I was so scared. And there was a guy down the end looking at me, and I got scared of him. He started looking at me, he started walking towards me. And he started running at me, and I ran back into the cinema, and there was like chainsaw sounds in the cinema. I couldn't escape anything. I was so terrified.
You must have imagined that.
I don't know, it was real.
In the cinema,
it was real.
Whatever you say, man.
And he had a chainsaw, man.
Do you guys still scare easily in movies?
I get the gut feeling. For me, a good horror film is the one that works, like on an atmospheric level where you just don't feel, you have that weird gut feeling, and it's just uncomfortable to watch.
But it has to always be anchored and rooted in character. Like I have to care about the characters to care about the horror, because if it's just like a jump scare or like a shocking image, like it doesn't affect me as much. But if I care for the characters, because I get so invested with films, like I'll forget I'm watching a film. And so like if I'm caring about the person, you feel that dread for sure.
And if you get to a point in a film where and it's hard to do, and it's hard, there's not many films that do what I feel, but if you get to a point where you don't want something bad to happen to that character, then it feels like you're onto something special. Like when you watch movies like that, you're like, oh, please, let this person be okay,
Yeah, absolutely. There's not a lot of that in Freddy vs. Jason, to be fair, is there?
No, but it was a very fun horror film, wasn't it?
It was.
Yeah.
And what do you think is, like, were you thinking about how to kind of execute scares when you were making this? And, like, were you aware of kind of, I don't know, not including too many just jump scares or, like, different types of scares? How did you kind of execute the horror in this film?
Well, yeah, that same thing. It was like having it based and rooted in character, and not to have, like, jump scares that were false jump scares, like cats jumping out or phones ringing too loud. Like, we wanted to earn our scares and have them be based like in character and like have a real impact on the film. So like that was how we approached our scares, to always come from character first.
It is funny though when you're shooting stuff and it's like, just trust us guys.
Where does it come together for you in the edit, that kind of thing, in terms of the scares? Is it about kind of the pacing, the sound? Like, is there anything?
Well, that's all a big part of it. But I think like doing things practically and understanding, like, once the spirits and stuff walk on set, it's like, there's like a presence to them. They look so amazing that like, it brings this authenticity to it. So I think like shooting things practical, and we can pick, we edit while we're shooting, and I feel bad like for like moments and like when things to hit, I feel bad. We mixed the film and we exported it, and then I said, can we, and like, exporting is a massive deal, but there's one moment that I wanted to go for 2 frames longer, because I was watching, I'm like, it's not right, it's gotta be 2 frames longer. And I feel bad, I made him re-export the entire film for 2 frames extra on one shot, but I think it worked.
Yeah, but then also like in with the editing process, it's all about peeling back. Like we did that with like the first draft of the script was so much more heavy and so much more full on. And then after the first possession, it'd be like, why would they do this again after such an extreme thing happened? So like it's about peeling it back. And there was even sequences that we shot in the film. There's a scene where Mia crosses over to the other side. She gets a glimpse of hell.
Spoiler.
And yeah, a bit of a spoiler. But like that scene went for 2.5 minutes initially, and we had to cut it down to 15 seconds because it was too much. And so I was like, let's calm down and not go that far.
But then you don't hold back on those moments of brutality as well, right? When that horror comes, it really packs a punch. Were you guys keen to kind of really emphasize that, the moment of somebody getting their face smashed against something, right? That moment is really powerful. Like, how much did you want to kind of push that or hold back? Tell me about that moment.
It was a constant discussion, because if you've seen our YouTube stuff, like we could make it go for 10 minutes, But it's kind of like, we don't want to just be gratuitous for gratuitous sake. We want those, like I said, those moments to be earned. And of course there's shocking, and you want that weight to be like, to carry a weight where, if it's going to come hard, but it's everything around it building up to that, and then controlling it to not linger on things and just to linger on them. So
we didn't want like a splatter film. Like that was important to us. Is that like The Exorcist? It's like those moments are so shocking, but it feels like they've earned those moments, and they're not just there one after the other. And
so it's like a constant thing, and it's like, it's a line to walk. And it's good having Sam as well. That helped us with that. So because it's juggling a bunch of different things. So. Yeah.
Did you have any kind of cinematic reference points? Movies like The Exorcist, for example. Were there any kind of movies that particularly inspired this movie?
There's so many different things, but like a lot of stuff that we're watching like on set. So like Exorcist. There's a film called The Return. Let the Right One In terms of like tonal shifts is like Bong Joon-ho, Memories of Murder. So there was a whole bunch of stuff like that. It's a whole bunch of different things.
I love it. People have been talking a lot about horror being in a kind of golden age at the moment. With people like, as well as yourselves, people like Ari Aster and Jordan Peele. Why do you think that is? Why is it that horror now is in a place that is kind of so being enjoyed by so many audiences? Maybe in comparison to, for example, 20 years ago when it was the Texas Chainsaw remake and Freddy vs. Jason, it feels like horror is in a better place right now, right?
Yeah. They started some really gold nuggets in that era, though. Do you remember Orphan? That was a really good film.
Yeah.
The Descent. So, like, I remember those early 2000s still did have their slappers.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
I think that people aren't afraid of horror anymore. Like, maybe people, like, look down at it a little bit, like, around that era, but people are returning to it like they did in the 80s. And so that you can explore so many different themes with horror. And to know that you can touch on a whole bunch of different subjects through the lens of a horror film without it feeling too preachy or on the nose or something. I think that filmmakers are embracing the genre more, maybe.
I love that, yeah. And tell me about the casting there. Such incredible performances, particularly from Sophie. Tell me about that kind of casting process.
Well, yeah, it was just about finding the most authentic people for the role. And like, it was a very extensive, long casting process, but we knew we had found each person when we found them. And then finding Sophie, who's such a physical performer, and she would do, like, there were days where I'm like, can you come to set having not slept? And she would stay up all night for me and come to set, like a bit like loopy and stuff like that. She committed that much. And there's a scene where she's attacking herself, and like we were in the cupboard and we were like, because we were like always being on set somewhere. And then she started doing it for real. And then we're like, whoa. Like, it was like she's just so committed, like beyond anything. She's such an incredible performer. We loved working with Sophie.
That is such a powerful moment, that hitting moment. Yeah. You could feel people kind of wincing in the audience at that moment.
All real Sophie went there.
And everyone on set as well. She's amazing.
Incredible. Am I right in thinking this started as a kind of short film and then you expanded it to feature length?
Well, the initial thing that I got sent was a short film, and then I rewrote the short film, and then I ran with it. So it never we never shot a short film or anything like that, but there was a short script.
Did you always know that there was enough there for it to kind of expand into a feature?
Well, it's like once I did my pass of that short film and I had the 80 pages, I was like, oh my gosh, there's so many moments in here that I'm so excited about. And then once I sent it to my co-writer, Bill Hinsman, he was able to help me structure it and put it together better. I was like, I felt pretty confident and excited.
I love it. The ending is, again, we won't spoil it, but it's such a brilliant ending that kind of leaves people on a high. I think, did you kind of always have in your head like how you wanted this story to conclude? And
that came in the second draft.
Really?
Yeah, so it wasn't in the first draft. It was like something that, like, when you sit with something, you keep revising and constantly having those conversations. And it's so amazing to have a collaborator, like a co-writer, that you can bounce things off of, because like you just... I don't know, that process is so incredible. It's like being on set and like all these people putting their energies into one thing. Same with the writing, like they just bring like this other element. So having Bill to bounce off was the most amazing thing. Like it's so exciting when you find moments that were like, oh my God.
Yeah, and you get excited for it, and there's moments in it. I remember reading it for the first time. There's like certain moments, like when they happen, it's like, oh yeah, like this feels special. Your new script hasn't got that.
Oh no! I was going to ask, what's next? Do you guys have any like second projects in the pipeline?
Yeah, I've got a horror film called Bring Her Back that I'm really excited about. Mark was writing some B-grade schlock that he can do on the side, but Bring Her Back.
Love it.
But yeah, we're really excited about doing an action film, and I so badly want to do another horror film. And we're so ready to go. Like, I want to start shooting tomorrow.
What about Talk to Me? Would you return to the world of Talk to Me for a sequel or anything else?
Imagine that. Talk to
me. Oh, it sells itself.
Talk
right?
free me. Yeah. Talk to me. Talk for me. Talk to me in space. There's so many different things that you could do. Our mythology Bible is so thick, and like we have so many ideas. Like even when we were writing the first film, we were writing scenes for a sequel. So if they gave me a sequel, I would 100% jump at that. I would love that. That'd be so much fun.
How has this whole process been for you these last couple of months? Sundance, A24, like this amazing festival run you guys have had. How's it all been? It must be a whirlwind.
Well, yeah, everything feels so... Even the fact that we got to make the film felt like what heaven. And like, I feel like we're heaven, feel like we're dreaming.
Yeah, the whole time. Even when it's like, we've been going forever and then the crew's all tired and we're like...
Yeah, guys. Yeah, even the stressful things. They're like, there's the production designer doesn't have enough budget for this. I'm like, we have a production designer. Like, it just every part of it just feels so exciting. And
is it weird though, relinquishing control when you guys kind of did everything between you, right? With videos
no, because we hired people that we knew were better at that stuff than we were. So
it was a relief. It was a relief because it's like you don't have to worry about. It's like someone's going to do that, and it's weird. You always feel like you got to be doing more or something. Like even when we're watching the film in the cinema, it's like I feel like I'm going to be doing something or something, but it's like it's done. It's like just. It's going to be received how it's going to be received, but
yeah. And
like
also the feedback from all these amazing people, like Jordan Peele and Ari Aster. Like Jordan Peele FaceTimed me, was talking about the film and texted me and said, and Ari said it was special. We've been talking with Ari, so
and now we're friends with Ari Aster. How cool is that?
Holy shit, that's
amazing.
We
sent like text messages when he first sent me a message.
Oh my god,
this is so embarrassing. He sent me a message, right? And then a friend saw that he was at the premiere and he's like, Ari Aster was at your premiere, da da da. And I'm like, who, this guy? And I sent a screenshot of Ari Aster's message, but I sent it to Ari Aster.
Oh no.
It's so awkward. Michael, stop doing that.
That's why Danny's like, if there's famous people, don't put them in your phone because I'll do that shit all the time. I was so like, you know when your heart sinks.
Yeah.
No.
It was a heart sink
cringe.
moment.
What cringe.
We love you, Ari.
Yeah, as if he said that story, Ari's gonna see that. Fuck. Yeah, that's embarrassing. Yeah.
Oh my god.
He's awesome. He is so cool.
He's so cool, yeah.
Incredible. Guys, thank you so much for your time.
Cheers. Yeah, nice to meet you. Thank you.
And there we go. That is it for my interview with Danny and Michael Philippou. And if you want to hear a full review of what we thought of Talk to Me, then sign up to our Patreon and listen to this week's Fresh Blood. Fresh Blood is where we review and discuss all new releases in the world of horror. And Brad Hanson, Becky Dark, and I all discuss our thoughts on what I think is the best film of the year. And if you are in the UK, Talk to Me is out in cinemas right now. Get yourself down to your local cinema and go and see it. It's absolutely incredible. Thank you so much for listening, and join us again soon for another episode of The Evolution of Horror.